The lineage of the British royalty carries with it centuries of tradition, power, and mystery. Though surrounded by a veil of respect and admiration, there are stories that challenge everything we believe we know about the monarchy. Among these rumors, one specific theory crosses the threshold of the imaginable. The idea that the royal family descends from ancient reptilian beings, entities that are said to have shaped human history since time immemorial. As absurd as this idea may seem at first glance, documents, myths, and even testimonies suggest that something extraordinary is hidden in the deeper layers of this dynasty. But what if these theories had some basis? What if the British Crown's connections to secret societies, occult symbols, and ancient practices were pieces of a larger puzzle? As we explore the secrets of this lineage, new questions arise. Could the blue blood of the British monarchy carry an extraterrestrial legacy that transcends eras? Welcome to another night where mysteries never sleep. I am Midnight, and this is 7 Nights. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for your help. Like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's just a click, but it makes a huge difference in helping YouTube share these videos with more people and allowing me to continue bringing this content to you. I'm counting on you. Let's dive into the video. Since the beginning of recorded history, the British royalty has been seen as a symbol of power, tradition, and for many, mystery. Now, let me ask you, when you think of royalty, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Glamour or a secret no one should ever know? After all, what does it really mean to belong to this lineage? Some believe that the monarchy represents not just a political or cultural heritage, but something much older and darker, a direct connection to beings that are not entirely human. It may sound absurd, but the theories surrounding the origin of the British royalty point to a descent linked to so-called reptilians. Have you ever heard of the Anunnaki? These beings are mentioned in ancient Sumerian texts as creatures that came from the heavens to shape human civilization. Curiously, they are often described with reptilian features. And it's no coincidence that many theorists suggest a connection between these mythological figures and the British royalty. According to some theories, the monarchy's bloodline carries genetic traits inherited from these ancient entities, something that has been carefully preserved over centuries. And how has this lineage been preserved? This is where a practice that has always drawn the attention of historians comes into play: arranged marriages within the nobility. Since the Middle Ages, marrying within one's own social class was more than a tradition, it was a rule. But why? Officially, it was said to protect political alliances, but could there have been another objective? To preserve something unique in the royal blood? Moreover, when we look at the origins of the British monarchy, we see that the oldest stories of Scotland, Ireland, and Wales are filled with myths about dragons, serpents, and supernatural creatures. In Wales, for example, the red dragon is considered the ultimate symbol of power and sovereignty. But what does this symbol really represent? Just a metaphor? Or a remnant of a truth that has been buried under the weight of ages? What's even more intriguing is that these connections aren't limited to Great Britain. On the contrary, we find similar narratives in cultures around the world. In China, dragons are seen as divine beings that guide emperors. In Mexico, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was revered as a civilizing god. What if these stories are not just isolated myths, but clues to a shared origin? Now, let me tell you something that few people know. John Dee, Queen Elizabeth I's advisor, believed that England had a special connection to the celestial realm. He was a renowned occultist and frequently mentioned the idea of a chosen kingdom in his practices. Some believe that Dee was referring to an extraterrestrial power that had chosen the English lineage as a kind of guardian. Could this be true? But let's move forward. There are places tied to the monarchy that further fuel these theories. One of them is Balmoral Castle in Scotland. This castle, aside from being a royal family retreat, is the target of rumors about underground tunnels and secret chambers. Many believe these spaces hide artifacts and documents capable of proving the royal lineage's connection to reptilians. But what exactly could be stored there? And what about modern accounts? There are witnesses who claim to have seen reptilian transformations at royal events. One of the most controversial stories involves Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Defense Minister. He publicly stated that reptilians are infiltrated in positions of power. Such an accusation may seem unbelievable, but at the same time, it's hard to ignore the boldness of someone so influential making such a claim. The monarchy's own symbolism is filled with references to reptilian creatures. The use of dragons and crests, the the serpents that appear in artworks commissioned by Henry VIII, and even the shape of some crowns allude to these mythical beings. Are these representations merely decorative, or do they indicate something hiding in plain sight? Then there's the Stone of Scone, used in the coronation of British kings. This stone is seen as a sacred artifact, but some stories suggest it has a mysterious origin. It is said to have been a gift from the gods to the kings of the earth. Who were these gods? Another intriguing point is the symbolic power of the monarchy today. In a rapidly changing world, royalty maintains its influence even in countries where the monarch's role is purely ceremonial. Does this power go beyond tradition? Is there something deeper sustaining this almost unshakable presence? With so many mysteries surrounding the royal lineage, the question remains, are we dealing with myths and historical coincidences, or is there a profound and disturbing secret hidden in the blood of British royalty? Over the centuries, a specific theory has gained traction among those who question the true power behind thrones and governments. The idea that reptilian beings, a race of extraterrestrial origin, are infiltrated among us, controlling humanity's destiny. And according to conspiracy theorists, the British royal family is one of the pillars of this hidden domination. But where did this theory originate? Much of the popularity of this idea can be attributed to David Icke, a former sports journalist who became one of the leading proponents of modern conspiracy theories. According to Icke, reptilians are masters of manipulation, capable of shape-shifting to look like ordinary humans. And do you believe it's possible that something or someone could be living disguised among us? Or do you think all this is pure science fiction? He believes these beings created hybrid lineages, mixing their genes with humans to establish direct control over power on Earth. And guess what? The British royal family is said to be at the center of this scheme. But what is it about this theory that makes it so fascinating, and for some, even plausible? Believers point to the monarchy's historical obsession with ceremonies, rituals, and symbols that seem to hide secret messages. For instance, the frequent use of snakes, dragons, and reptilian figures in the crests and art associated with royalty. Is this all just a matter of aesthetics, or is there something deeper at play? Another point that draws attention is the structure of global power. Think about it. The British monarchy, although it has lost much of its direct political authority, still wields enormous symbolic and cultural power. It is connected to a vast network of influence that includes the Commonwealth, with dozens of countries under its sphere of influence. Isn't it curious that, even in a modern world, royalty still holds so much relevance? And what about the secret societies that are supposedly connected to the monarchy? Groups like the Freemasons and the Illuminati are often cited as key players in global conspiracies. Some claim these organizations act as operational arms of the reptilians, working to ensure control remains in the hands of these special bloodlines. Are these theories exaggerated, or could there be real connections we fail to see clearly? Modern testimonies also fuel these beliefs. There are accounts, especially online, of people claiming to have seen public figures, including members of the royalty, failing to maintain their human form. Videos circulating online show eyes that seem to change shape or unusual reflections on faces. Of course, many of these videos can be explained as digital manipulations or optical illusions. But the question remains, what if some of these recordings are real? One of the most famous examples occurred during a live broadcast of a royal event. A security guard was allegedly filmed with reptilian features, an image that quickly went viral, sparking heated debates. Although Buckingham Palace dismissed the claims as absurd conspiracy theories, proponents of the idea insist this was a slip in reptilian camouflage. And what about the political decisions made under the monarchy's influence? Many point to key moments in British history, such as the expansion of the British Empire, as part of a larger plan. According to this theory, the reptilians are not only concerned with accumulating power, but also with keeping humanity under control, manipulating global events for their own interests. Interestingly, even the most controversial figures within the monarchy, such as Princess Diana, have made comments that fuel speculation. In interviews, Diana described the royal family as cold and emotionless, as if they were disconnected from humanity. Some interpret these words as metaphors, while others believe she was suggesting something literal, a disconnection due to their non-human origin. Another fascinating detail is how the monarchy is protected by an impenetrable system. Access to their private lives is rigorously controlled, and personal details rarely leaked to the public. Is this merely a matter of protocol and security, or a way to hide secrets that cannot be revealed? Supporters of the reptilian conspiracy theory also point to the monarchy's longevity and resilience as evidence of something out of the ordinary. While governments rise and fall, the British crown remains. It's as if an invisible force ensures its continuity. Is this just historical luck or something greater? And what about the public behavior of royal family members? Although they always present an image of perfection, there are moments when strange attitudes are captured. Some body language experts point out that, on specific occasions, there are gestures or expressions that seem inhuman. Of course, this could be an exaggerated interpretation, but is there something beneath the surface? Even royal ceremonies provide ample material for conspiracy theorists. Rituals such as the coronation of a monarch or royal weddings are steeped in symbolism and tradition. But upon closer examination, many of these elements have roots in ancient esoteric practices. Are these ceremonies merely spectacles, or a form of ritual tracing back to the reptilian origins of the royal lineage? When we piece together all these elements, the symbolism, secret societies, modern accounts, and historical connections, the picture that emerges is disturbingly complex. Are these conspiracy theories simply the product of human imagination? Or are we facing a hidden truth, something the monarchy and its allies work tirelessly to keep out of the public's reach? If these theories are true, to what extent is humanity being controlled? And what does it really mean to be under the rule of this lineage? When we talk about royalty, the expression blue blood is almost synonymous with nobility and exclusivity. But what does this expression really mean? Officially, it refers to the idea that the veins of Europe's elite appeared bluer due to their pale skin, a result of not performing physical labor outdoors. However, some theories suggest this term may carry a much deeper meaning, something tied to genetics and even the reptilian origin of the royal lineage. One point raised by conspiracy theorists is the monarchy's fascination with preserving its lineage. Marriages between nobles, often close cousins, were a common practice for centuries. While this is often explained as a way to protect political alliances and wealth, some believe the real motive was to ensure the purity of a specific genetic code. But what code could this be? Genetic analyses conducted on the remains of ancient royalty reveal peculiar traits. Studies on the mummy of Tutankhamun, for example, uncovered deformities often attributed to inbreeding, but some theorists suggest these are signs of non-human characteristics. Although Tutankhamun belongs to Egyptian royalty, some claim these patterns can also be found in other royal lineages, including the British. Could blue blood represent more than just a symbolic status? Another intriguing detail lies in legends surrounding the power of royal blood. In some ancient cultures, it was believed that the blood of kings possessed magical or divine properties, capable of healing diseases or granting longevity. In medieval Europe, this gave rise to the practice known as the royal touch, where monarchs were believed to cure ailments with the touch of their hands. Were these stories mere superstitions, or do they indicate something truly special about the blood of certain lineages? Historical documents reveal a curious pattern. Whenever a new lineage sought to consolidate power, great emphasis was placed on proving the legitimacy of their blood. This was often done through detailed genealogies that frequently traced the lineage back to mythical or semi-divine figures. In the case of the British royalty, there are records suggesting a connection to the ancient kings of Israel and even to Egyptian pharaohs. But why would these connections be so important? Could they be trying to hide an even more mysterious origin? Modern science also raises some intriguing questions. DNA studies on individuals of European descent reveal that some lineages possess rare genetic mutations, particularly in genes related to disease resistance. These mutations, while rare, are more common in aristocratic and royal families. Coincidence? Or could this be evidence that these lineages truly carry something unique? And what about the royalty's obsession with preserving relics linked to blood? For example, the Holy Grail, widely believed to be a chalice, is considered by others to be a metaphor for a sacred lineage connecting kings to the divine. Some researchers argue that the Grail is tied to the idea of a hybrid lineage, a mix of human and something more. Could the search for this artifact be, in reality, an attempt to protect or recover this legacy? There are also rumors that the British Crown possesses secret genetic records. These documents are said to be kept under extreme secrecy, and could contain information proving the extraterrestrial origin of their lineage. While this idea sounds straight out of a science fiction novel, the monarchy's extreme discretion regarding personal matters fuels these suspicions. After all, why would royalty be so careful in protecting their privacy? Another point of interest is the use of blood-related symbols in royal ceremonies. The act of anointing a monarch during their coronation, for instance, dates back to ancient traditions where the blood of sacrificed animals was used to seal pacts between kings and gods. Although the modern practice has been adapted, the essence of the ritual remains, a spiritual connection that, according to some, could trace back to reptilian origins. Testimonies from individuals close to the monarchy also fuel conspiracy theories. Servants and royal advisors have, on rare occasions, made vague comments about strange behaviors observed in certain members of the royal family. One former butler, for instance, stated that there's something in their blood that makes them different. But what did he mean by that? And what about health issues related to blood? On several occasions, members of the royal family have been diagnosed with rare blood-related conditions, such as hemophilia, known as the royal disease. Are these conditions merely the result of inbreeding, or could they be linked to unique genetic traits inherited from an ancient lineage? When we connect all these pieces, the obsession with blood purity, unusual genetic patterns, and symbols tracing back to ancient practices, the inevitable question arises: what is truly being preserved within the royal lineage? Are we merely looking at a carefully protected tradition, or is there a greater secret behind the term blue blood? And what if the monarchy's blood isn't just a symbol of power, but the key to understanding a history that challenges everything we know about humanity's origins? Over the years, strange stories and accounts have surrounded the British monarchy, creating an aura of mystery that extends far beyond the doors of their castles. To many, the royal family is not just the guardian of traditions, but also of secrets that should never come to light. Among the most intriguing stories are those describing supernatural events and inexplicable behaviors observed around members of the royal family. One of the most talked about cases occurred at Balmoral Castle, the royal family's private residence in Scotland. Staff and visitors to the site have reported sightings of shadowy figures in the corridors, and even the sound of footsteps in completely empty areas. While these reports are often attributed to ghosts, some believe these manifestations are connected to occult practices carried out by the monarchy. After all, why do so many strange phenomena seem to occur at royal properties? But the reports are not limited to supernatural events within the castles. Some witnesses claim to have seen physical transformations in members of the royal family. In one of the most well-known cases, a woman attending a public ceremony reported that the eyes of a royal family member appeared to briefly change shape, taking on a reptilian aspect. She described the experience as terrifying and impossible to forget. But could this have been just an optical illusion? Another controversial episode involves a video that circulated online, supposedly showing a royal bodyguard with reptilian characteristics. The man, who was protecting a public event, was filmed from an angle that revealed unusual features on his face and neck, as though his skin was transforming. While many dismissed the video as digital manipulation, it further fueled theories about the monarchy's reptilian connection. What about the stories emerging from Buckingham Palace itself? Some former staff, speaking anonymously, have mentioned feeling presences in certain areas of the palace, especially at night. One guard reported hearing voices murmuring in an unknown language in one of the corridors, despite no one being nearby. Could this be a supernatural manifestation, or something more closely tied to the palace's secrets? There are also historical stories connecting royalty to supernatural figures. One example is Queen Victoria, who reportedly held seances to communicate with her late husband, Prince Albert. While these seances were seen as a reflection of Victoria's mourning, some believe they may also have been used to access esoteric knowledge that reinforced the crown's power. But how much of these practices were officially documented? Less subtle evidence appears in public ceremonies. Many theorists claim that events such as the coronation of a monarch contain elements reminiscent of invocation rituals. Certain gestures and words used during these events, they argue, are not merely symbolic, but part of a ritualistic process meant to connect the royal lineage to ancient forces. Could there be truth to this? Perhaps most striking are the claims of public figures who have dared to speak openly on the subject. Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, is one such individual. He publicly declared that reptilians are infiltrated in positions of power worldwide, including the British monarchy. While his statements have been met with skepticism, the fact that such a high-ranking official would make such allegations cannot be ignored. Even stories about Princess Diana have fueled these rumors. According to reports, Diana confided to close friends that she felt the royal family was different and that there was something inhuman about their behavior. These statements, though vague, have been interpreted as evidence that Diana suspected a non-human connection within the royal lineage. Could this have been one of the reasons behind her troubled relationship with the monarchy? In addition to direct accounts, there are legends surrounding royal locations. Windsor, for instance, is often cited as one of the most haunted places in England. But are these hauntings merely ghosts? Some stories describe figures that don't resemble humans but reptilian creatures. Coincidence or something more? Even weather conditions are sometimes linked to mysterious events. Certain royal gatherings and ceremonies have been marked by sudden storms or inexplicable weather changes. While these could easily be dismissed as natural phenomena, some see them as signs of something extraordinary at play. And what about modern testimonies? A woman who worked as an assistant at a royal event recounted that while preparing a room before the Queen's arrival, she felt an intense presence that made her leave immediately. She described the moment as indescribably strange, and when she told her colleagues about it, she was advised not to speak of it again. All these accounts, as extraordinary as they may seem, point to a bigger question. If the monarchy truly guards such profound secrets, what do they signify? And more importantly, what could happen if these truths were revealed to the public? Whether through supernatural phenomena, inexplicable behaviors, or insider testimonies, the idea that something unusual surrounds the royal family persists. Are these events merely the product of human imagination, or evidence that there is something truly extraordinary, and possibly inhuman, at the heart of the British monarchy? When we think about reptilians and their supposed connection to the monarchy, many are quick to dismiss the idea as pure fantasy. However, when we examine myths and legends worldwide, we find curious patterns. Reptilian figures are often associated with power, wisdom, and divinity. Are these cultural similarities mere coincidences, or could they be clues to something much greater? Something linking the British monarchy to an ancient reptilian origin? Let's begin with ancient Sumer, often regarded as the cradle of civilization. Among the records of this civilization are the stories of the Anunnaki, a race of beings said to have come from the heavens to rule and teach humanity. These creatures were frequently depicted with reptilian features and were considered gods. Isn't it curious that in these stories, these gods selected human kings to rule on their behalf? Could this practice have marked the beginning of royal bloodlines on Earth? In China, the figure of the dragon is central to its culture and mythology. Unlike in the West, where dragons are often viewed as monsters, Chinese dragons are considered symbols of power, wisdom, and authority. And what if these figures of dragons and serpents across different cultures weren't just myths? Are we connecting the dots, or are we stretching too far here? For centuries, Chinese emperors declared themselves sons of the dragon, establishing a direct connection between their authority and these mythical creatures. Could there be a link between these beliefs and the traditions of Western monarchies? The indigenous cultures of the Americas also offer intriguing stories. The Mayans and Aztecs revered Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, as a benevolent god who brought knowledge and civilization. Similar to the Asian dragon, Quetzalcoatl is a hybrid figure combining reptilian and human traits. Could this figure be a variation of a global myth, perhaps reflecting real interactions with a reptilian race in the past? We cannot forget the European legends of dragons. In medieval tales, dragons were often guardians of treasures or symbols of immense power that needed to be conquered. In heraldry, dragons and serpents appear as symbols of bravery and sovereignty. The British monarchy, in particular, uses the red dragon as a symbol in Wales. Were these representations purely symbolic, or did the ancients know something that has since been forgotten? Another noteworthy aspect is the relationship between these mythical figures and the control of knowledge. In many cultures, reptilian beings, whether dragons, serpents, or gods, are associated with guarding profound secrets, such as the creation of the world or the origins of humanity. Why do so many stories link these beings to power and knowledge? Could this be merely a cultural construct, or a reflection of something that truly happened? What's most intriguing is that these legends, despite emerging in different times and places, share similar themes. Dragons, serpents, and hybrid figures appear in almost every human culture. This repetition suggests a possible common origin, a distant memory of something experienced or witnessed by our ancestors. Could these stories be the key to understanding reptilian theories? In Africa, for example, the Dogon tribe of Mali has fascinating mythology about the Namos, beings who came from the stars and taught humanity. These beings are often described as amphibian or reptilian. Interestingly, the Dogon possess advanced astronomical knowledge, including details about the Sirius star system, which were only confirmed by modern science centuries later. Could this be further evidence of extraterrestrial contact in the past? In the Middle East, the legends of jinn, or genies, also contain curious elements. Although often associated with fire, some jinn are described with reptilian traits. According to the Quran, these beings live in a parallel plane to ours and can interact with humans, often influencing their decisions. Could the jinn be a different cultural interpretation of reptilian beings? Even the Bible contains references that raise questions. The serpent in the Garden of Eden, for instance, is often interpreted as a symbol of evil. But what if this figure represented something more literal, perhaps an entity with reptilian traits that directly interacted with early humans? A common thread in all these stories is the relationship between these beings and governance. Whether as guardians, gods, or kings, reptilian figures are almost always linked to power. This brings us back to the British monarchy. If these legends truly have a basis in reality, could the royalty be direct descendants of these ancient reptilian rulers? And what about the symbols surrounding the modern monarchy? The use of crowns, scepters, and robes harks back to consecration practices that may have origins far older than we imagine. These items, in many cultures, were seen as objects that connected kings to the gods. Could it be that, in the case of the British royalty, these symbols carry an even deeper meaning? If we piece together all these stories, from the Anunnaki to dragons, serpents, and hybrid figures, what emerges is a global web of myths and legends that seem to point to a hidden truth. Perhaps what we call mythology is, in fact, an attempt to preserve a record of something that happened in a distant past. Are all these stories, spread across the world, merely the product of human imagination, or do they reflect the existence of a lineage that has always been in control, a lineage somehow connected to reptilians? On the surface, the British monarchy is an institution built on tradition and ceremony. However, for those who search for hidden patterns, events and symbols associated with the royal family are seen as more than protocol. They are encoded messages intended to convey information or warnings to those who know how to interpret them. Are we surrounded by clues pointing to the royal family's connection with reptilians? Let's start with royal ceremonies. The coronation of a monarch, for example, is an event steeped in symbolism. From the use of the scepter and crown to the specific words spoken during the rite, everything seems connected to ancient esoteric practices. Many theorists believe these rituals are not merely acts of tradition, but reenactments meant to reaffirm the monarchy's link to higher powers. Have you ever wondered why these events follow such strict patterns even today? The throne used in coronations also has a mysterious history. The coronation chair, used since the 13th century, contains the stone of Scone, an artifact some believe is more than a historical relic. Legends suggest the stone was a gift from the gods, connecting monarchs to a divine lineage. Are these ceremonies a reaffirmation of an ancient pact? Beyond the events, the architecture of royal palaces is also subject to scrutiny. Many researchers point to the geometric layouts of castles like Balmoral and Windsor, suggesting they follow patterns similar to those found in ancient monuments such as the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. Some claim these geometric designs were intended to channel specific energies. Were these locations chosen and designed to preserve or amplify hidden power? The coats of arms and symbols of the monarchy also carry hidden meanings. The red dragon of Wales, featured in royal emblems, is often cited as a direct reference to the reptilian connection. Other symbols, such as the chained unicorn on Scotland's royal crest, also raise questions. Why is a mythical creature like the unicorn depicted as captive? Some interpret this as a metaphor for the monarchy's control over supernatural forces. Conspiracy theorists also draw attention to the language used in royal speeches and official documents. In some cases, seemingly ordinary words are viewed as codes. A widely debated example occurred during Queen Elizabeth II's 2020 Christmas message, in which she mentioned difficult times that remind us of the invisible forces shaping our lives. For many, this was interpreted as a veiled reference to the reptilian forces supposedly ruling the world behind the scenes. It's not just symbols and words that spark curiosity, but also the royal family's behavior in public. During televised events, unusual facial expressions and seemingly insignificant gestures have been heavily analyzed. Some theorists believe these gestures are signals between them or even temporary glitches in their human camouflage. Could this explain why royal appearances are so meticulously controlled? Artwork commissioned by the monarchy is another frequent subject of analysis. Renaissance paintings ordered by Henry VIII, for example, depict royal figures flanked by dragons and serpents. While these may be artistic representations, some argue that these images reflect the true nature of the royal lineage. Could the artists of that era have known something kept secret? The monarchy's role in promoting certain narratives is also an interesting point. Through its cultural sponsorship, the royal family has direct influence over museums and historical institutions. Some theorists claim this influence is used to control which versions of history are told to the public. Could certain truths be deliberately hidden? Another intriguing detail is the presence of hidden messages in popular culture. Many movies, books, and series address the theme of reptilians in an apparently fictional manner, but some suggest this is a way of preparing the public for a future revelation. Works such as The Visitors, which depicts reptilian aliens infiltrating Earth, and episodes of Doctor Who exploring monarchs tied to extraterrestrial forces, are viewed as examples of covert disclosure. But what about royal scandals? Many believe the controversies involving members of the monarchy are more than human mistakes. Some of these situations are seen as intentional distractions to divert attention from deeper issues. Could these scandals be part of a larger plan to protect dark secrets? We also can't ignore insider testimonies. Former royal staff have occasionally mentioned unusual codes and protocols used within the palaces. Are these protocols merely security measures, or could they be signs of a hidden communication network? The monarchy's resilience over the centuries is another enigma. Governments and empires have fallen, yet the British royal family remains. Is this merely a reflection of their political skill, or is there something more, something keeping them in power beyond human comprehension? With each fragment analyzed, the story of the British monarchy reveals more questions than answers. Among reports of supernatural sightings, enigmatic symbolism, and ancient legends echoing across the world, an unsettling picture emerges. The possibility that the royal lineage is more than it appears. For some, these connections are mere conspiracy theories. For others, they are clues to a hidden truth, carefully guarded for centuries. Perhaps we will never know for sure if there is something reptilian in the blue blood of the royal family. But the stories, symbols, and rumors continue to intrigue us, like pieces of an incomplete puzzle. This story is just one piece, and one day, we may see the entire picture. If this made you think, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. After all, more voices mean more discoveries.